Hello. Okay. I don't know if you've ever done Facebook Live. Sometimes it's hard to tell if you're like live. But hello. So, welcome. My name is Miss Erin, and I work at the Mount Airy Library. I thought I would change it up and be in my kitchen today rather than my spare room. So today, usually I've been targeting the little ones with some fun storytime stuff. But today I am going to talk about middle grade books that are available for you on our digital resources, our Hoopla streaming, audiobooks and ebooks, and Libby / Overdrive, audiobooks and ebooks. I feel like I'm kind of glitching there. I hope that this is okay. So I'm going to use the word Libby today, but Libby and Overdrive are the same thing. They are two separate apps. You could download whichever one you have a preference for. Libby came out a little bit after Overdrive because Overdrive had some compatibility issues with some devices, and Libby has less of those issues. Also, Libby is, I think, has a nicer interface. It looks a little more simple. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you today about 5 books, and I'm going to tell you on which app, which services they're available, and in what format. And so let's get to it. When I was looking at my books just a little while ago, I realized that they all kind of have the theme of caretaking or caregiving, and that wasn't intentional. I was just kind of finding fun stuff that was available for you. But with that in mind, we can kind of talk about that. Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of like glitching here, but I hope that's just me looking at it and not coming through. Okay. Anyway, well, without further ado, my first book that I have is called The Wild Robot. This is by Peter Brown. And we have had some of these books may have noticed were either on a Battle of the Books list from the past or one of our recommended summer reading lists from the past. But in case you hadn't seen those lists, or maybe you were a little bit younger than these books at the time, these might be new to you. So first I wanted to show The Wild Robot. This is by Peter Brown. And this is the first of 2 books. The second book is called The Wild Robot Escapes. Escapes what? So in this book, our robot's name is Roz, and Roz uses the pronoun she, even though robots really aren't boys or girls. But Roz, we call her a she. And Roz one day wakes up, opens up her robot eyes, and she is stranded on a deserted island. Well, it's deserted from other robots and from people. But it has plenty of animals living on there. And that's one of my absolute favorite things about this book, is that there are plenty of really fun, silly animals that live on this island and interact with Roz. And so Roz actually, in her own way, becomes a caregiver to an animal called Brightbill. And you will have to read the book to find out what kind of animal that is. But with the word bill in it, you might be able to tell. And the other thing I really love about this book is that there are illustrations in it. And I feel like these are very beautiful, gentle illustrations that are also by Peter Brown, the person who wrote the book. And one of my very favorites, I'll show you, is at one time, Roz hurts her foot. How does a robot hurt their foot? That's a great question. You will have to read the book to find out. But she and the animals do a really great job of mending it up. And I just really love this kind of power stance that Roz has with her mended foot on this rock. So she's not down for long, and you'll have to read the book to find out what happens. So at the beginning of the book and throughout most of the book, Roz has no idea why she's on this island. How did she get there? Was she going somewhere else? Where is she meant to be? All of that is answered in a very mysterious way, but I'm not going to give away the spoiler. So I want you to check out The Wild Robot. This is recommended by School Library Journal for grades 3 to 5. I think for even younger than 3, it's a great read aloud for grown-ups to their kiddos at bedtime because it's very gentle and there's some adventure, but it's never gets super duper scary. And I did want to mention again, there's a sequel, and this right now is available via ebook and audiobook on the Libby and the Overdrive apps. Okay, so that is The Wild Robot. Book number 2. I went with a classic here. So Wild Robot came out just a few years ago, but this one was out when I was a kid. I know, forever ago. And this is the BFG. This is one of my absolute favorite books of all time. This is by Roald Dahl, and Roald Dahl, as you know, has written a lot of books. James and the Giant Peach, Matilda, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, lots of really great stuff. But my favorite book of his is the BFG. So the BFG, is that a word? Those are just letters together. Does anyone know what it stands for? Maybe you've heard of this book or read it before. The BFG means big, friendly, giant. And look how tall he is. And indeed, he is a big, friendly giant. You know what else he has? He has very large ears. I wonder why that is. Maybe we find out in the book. So the BFG is about a big, friendly giant. And he's so friendly and so nice. And he is supposed to be kidnapping our dear protagonist, our dear friend, Sophie. But instead of kidnapping her for evil, sinister purposes like most of the giants do, he wants to keep her and keep her safe and take care of her. So there's another caretaking aspect of one of our books. So again, the big friendly giant, he's different from the rest of the giants because they are all kind of nasty guys, but he is very friendly and silly. And this edition specifically comes with the classic illustrations by Quentin Blake. You might be able to find the BFG book that doesn't have these illustrations, and that's okay too. It's still just as fun. But Quentin Blake, our illustrator here, historically did work a lot with Roald Dahl books, so you might be able to find that a lot. So you'll have to see, what does our BFG use this big horn for? What is he planning on doing with Sophie? Does Sophie ever go home? Does she get to be friends with the BFG? Does she come across any of those nasty, awful giants? You will have to find out. And that is the BFG. This is by Roald Dahl. This is recommended for grades 3 to 6. Again, I think this could be a really great read aloud for younger kiddos because it's very, very funny and silly. I have read this book maybe 3, 4, 5 times, and I laugh every time. It's very, very silly and wonderful. And this right now is available in ebook and audio form on the Libby and Overdrive app. Okay, book number 3. Unusual Chickens for the Exceptional Poultry Farmer. This is by Kelly Jones with illustrations by Katie Kath. And this is one of my absolute favorite books that came out in recent years. Here's our illustrations. And they kind of reminded me a little bit, I'll be honest, when I read this, of those Quentin Blake illustrations. I feel like they're very kind of like imperfect in a really wonderful and charming way. So our main character here, guess what her name is? Remember in the BFG? Her name was Sophie. Guess what her name is? Her name is Sophie too! So our main character here is Sophie, and Sophie has moved with her parents from the big city out to her great uncle's farm. Her great uncle has passed away at the beginning of the book, and he gives his farm to her family. So they move there, and they go to take care of the farm, and Sophie is in charge of the chickens. But these just aren't all regular chickens. These are unusual chickens. And some of them levitate. What does levitate mean? Some of them float. Some of them can move things with their mind. Some of them lay glass eggs. and some of them can even go invisible. So Sophie comes across these unusual chickens and doesn't know what to do. So she starts writing letters. And in fact, most of this book is written in letters. She writes to the Blackbird Farm. She writes to her abuelita. Her abuelita has passed away. And she writes to her great uncle who has passed away. So you can tell there are some supernatural elements to this book. And here's another book that I laughed out loud many, many times when I read this book. And this book is the first in the series. There's a second book that's called Are You Ready to Hatch an Unusual Chicken? And I wanted to also mention that Kelly Jones has another book that just came out last year called Sauerkraut, which the protagonist in that is a boy, and he's a little bit older than Sophie. But what I love about Sophie and the character in Sauerkraut, which is a totally different story, is that they are so smart. And when they have questions about things, and they have a lot of questions because a lot of really weird stuff happens to them, they do their research. They go to the library, they ask a grown-up, they read books, they check sources online that they know to be really credible, well-researched sources, and they ask really good questions and compile all of that information so that they're able to attack their problems in the best way possible. And they're really funny and really, really interesting. So this is Unusual Chickens for the Exceptional Poultry Farmer. This one is available on, it's an ebook on Libby, the Libby Overdrive app. And this one is for grades 4 through 7. Now, parents, I will warn you, if you read this book, your kiddo may want to adopt some chickens. So if you have chickens, and being in Carroll County, a lot of people do, this is a great book for you. But if you are planning on getting chickens, this is also a really great book for you to check out so you can kind of get that started. So that's another great caretaker book because she takes very good care of those exceptional, unusual chickens. Okay, book number 4. This one is a little slower. It's a little sadder, but I will tell you, it starts out sad, but that's not necessarily how the book ends up. So I don't want to give too much away about that. But this one is called Pax. This is by Sarah Pennypacker. And as you can see, Pax is a fox. And this story is told from 2 different points of view. So one point of view is that of the fox. And each chapter where you are reading the fox's thoughts, you will see a fox silhouette at the beginning. And it is told by the fox's very good friend. Let me see if I can find that. My pages are sticking together. Peter. And Peter is a boy. So when you read a chapter by Peter, you will see a boy's silhouette at the beginning there. So each chapter kind of flips back from Pax the fox's point of view to Peter's point of view. And so the book starts out on kind of a sad note because Peter adopted Pax when Pax was very, very young, and they've grown up together. But one day, Peter's dad enlists in the army. And so Peter has to go, and war is coming. And Peter has to go and live with his grandfather 300 miles away so that he can be taken care of because his dad is going to the army. Well, Peter's grandfather does not allow Pax to come along. So I will warn you, it's so sad at the beginning. Peter has to give up Pax. So he sends Pax out into the wild, but it's kind of dangerous because Pax is not used to being in the wild. Pax is a at-home fox. He's almost like a dog or a cat at this point. So at the beginning, it's all about Pax trying to get along with the wild foxes and other animals in the forest that he sees. Peter, meanwhile, 300 miles away with his grandfather, both desperately missing their best friend. And then the book flip-flops between their journeys back to each other. So I don't want to give too much away, but you will have to read the book to find out if they indeed find each other again. Okay, that is Pax. That's by Sarah Pennypacker. Oh, I also did want to point out the illustrations in this are by John Klassen, who does really lovely picture books. And his art is just so sweet and gentle and really feels like you're out in nature. So this book is available on ebook and audio on Libby and Hoopla. So both of our streaming services, it's available in both formats, ebook and audio. And this is also recommended as grades 4 through 7. Some of that older stuff because war is mentioned, but it's very sweet. It's a very great book for a big age range. Okay, you ready for my last book? Book number 5. Now this one I read years ago when it first came out, and I did not know anything about this book, and I'm so glad that I read it because I feel like I learned so much. So this book is fiction, but it takes place in an actual moment in history, in American history. So we can kind of refer to it as historic fiction. This is called One Crazy Summer, and this is by Rita Williams Garcia. And as you can see, it has a big shiny thing on it. So it was a National Book Award finalist. And this is also the beginning of a series. This is a trilogy. And I actually not read the second two, but when I was rereading this, I remembered that there was 2 books that came out after it that I have yet to read. So I'm excited about that. Now, this book takes place in 1968, the summer of 1968, out in California. And if you have grandparents or other relatives who were around at that time, they can kind of let you know what was going on in 1968, kind of all across America, but a lot of things were going on in California specifically. And it was kind of a really uncertain, tumultuous time in America's history, not that unlike right now, but in a very different way. So this starts with Delphine. Our main character is Delphine, and Delphine is a caretaker already for her younger sisters, Vonetta and Fern, and they are, at the beginning it's sad because they are kind of abandoned by their mom, Cecile. And so they go to Oakland, California to try to find Cecile and stay with her and become a whole family again. Well, Cecile is busy with other things, and she may not necessarily have time for Delphine and Vonetta and Fern, which sounds kind of cruel, but as you get into it, the story of Cecile, Delphine, Vonetta, and Fern, you kind of really get to know all of them, and understand why they kind of do the things they do, and why they do them in the way that they do them. But also, you really learn a lot about what was going on in America in 1968 in the community that Delphine and her family live in. And again, I wanted to mention that caregiving aspect because I feel like this has such a great way of thinking about how people take care of each other, family members, but not just family members, community members, mothers, fathers, older sisters, older siblings, lots of different ways. So this is called One Crazy Summer. And like I said, if you're interested in actual history that happened, this is a fictionalized account, but these main characters really, really feel real. And like I said, I learned a lot of it. And I'm really excited to read those other 2. So this is available on, it's an ebook on Hoopla and on Libby. And it is for grades 4 through 7. So again, this is One Crazy Summer. This is by Rita Williams Garcia. She has a lot of other really great books that you should check out too. Okay. I think that's it. So we did 5 books today. Next week, I'm going to be back with some graphic novels, and then we'll see where we go from there. So thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope that you are being happy and healthy and safe. And thank you so much for still supporting your public library, because we are definitely here for you, and we will see you soon. Okay, bye.